Good evening. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of America in Black and White, the podcast that explores the intersection of race, entrepreneurship, and empowerment. I'm your host, Charles King, and today we have a special guest joining us, Mr. Rashad Hayes. Rashad is an entrepreneur and empowerment coach who helps individuals and organizations overcome challenges and improve their lives. A little bit more about Mr. Hayes is he is the founder of Shad Associates LLC, where he empowers individuals and organizations to overcome challenges and improve their lives with CAKE. That's an acronym for those that don't know are not familiar with Mr. Hayes. Rashad is currently a PhD student at the University of Alabama at Birmingham. Rashad is an expert in overcoming adversity and transforming problems into solutions. Audiences love his practical strategies that can be applied personally and professionally. Rashad is a one-of-a-kind speaker who can adjust his message to fit any audience. From high school students to Fortune 500 companies, Rashad is a speaker dedicated to producing results and changing lives. Rashad's messages will leave you inspired, motivated, and ready to eat some cake. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce you all to Mr. Rashad Hayes.
Hey, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing great. Welcome to the show, sir.
Man, glad to be here. Thank you for the opportunity to be on the show.
So, is there anything other than what I just spoke of in your bio that you'd like for our audience to know?
I guess another thing I add to it is that I'm also an author. Besides, speaker, I also teach some courses at UAB as a credential course instructor, and so I'm a man of many talents and many roles. So that's probably be the only thing I add, but everything else is perfect, especially that cake piece. Especially the cake piece.
For those that don't know what CAKE is, would you like to tell them what that acronym means?
Yes, so it's a methodology that I teach, and it starts with C, continue to learn, A, always love yourself, K, know your worth, and E, enjoy your life. And if you do those four steps, no matter what you go through, you're going to get through any adverse situation. And so that's what cake stands for. And the meaning behind it is that we typically only eat cake when we celebrate. But I always try to tell people that you should eat cake every day because every day is not promised. And so the fact that you're here on the other side is a celebration. And so that's the whole purpose of cake and just trying to remind people this is why we do what we need to do.
I tell you, knowing what cake is makes me want cake every day. Well, let's dive right in. Can you share with our listeners a bit about your journey as an entrepreneur and how you got started in empowerment coaching?
So my journey was very unique. I would like to say that it found me. Before all this even existed, I always been an athlete. I played college football at Benedict College in Columbia, South Carolina. And my freshman year, I decided to transfer to UAB because I wanted an opportunity to play for a bigger school. And when I got to that school, life happened. I ended up having to go from a full ride scholarship to now I'm having to pay for school. And unfortunately, the football team gets cut. And when the team gets cut, now I'm like, okay, what am I going to do now? And so now I'm like, okay, I got to get a job. I got to pay bills. And so I get into the field. I'm working two part-time jobs. I'm a barista at Starbucks. And then I'm also going to get costumes at Party City. So I'm juggling many things. I'm also a student. Well, fast forward as I go through this process, my senior year of college, of undergrad to be exact, I get diagnosed with cancer. And the type of cancer I was diagnosed with was follicular lymphoma. And if you look it up right now, they say there's no cure. But if you look at me, I've been blessed to fight this and live with this for the last 8 years of my life. And as I think about this process, I think that's what led me into empowerment because I went through a dark place. I went from being this athlete where I had everything given to me and I was working hard and it was cool to now I'm fighting for my life. And so as I was going through these emotions, I discovered that I didn't know how to get through situations. Like there was really no, besides the Bible, there was really no other book that taught you how to get through adverse situations. And so for me, I wanted to be that person. And so that's kind of what led me to get into this journey. And back in 2016, I got my first opportunity to speak to a school. And they knew I was fresh off of chemotherapy. They called me and they said, "Hey, we want you to speak to our staff." And so I made the drive and I started speaking. And what I discovered was that not only did I have a story, but I also had proof that despite what you get, whatever you go through, you can get through it. And so that's kind of what led me into it. And now here we are in 2024, and I get to kind of travel the country and make an impact. And I can't wait for that day that I can say, "Hey, I'm traveling the world," because I now have a message that I can relate to anybody, any age, demographic, you name it. And so that's where my passion came from. It literally took me going through some pain to find my purpose. But now that I know my purpose, no matter what I go through, it's not stopping me. And so that's what I'm trying to bring out of everybody else and teach them how to find that ingredient that makes them stand out. Because everybody wants to be like the next person instead of realizing like, hey, you're special too. And once you identify that ingredient, your life is going to change.
Wow. Now that's a lot. I am so happy and really I'm blessed. And I'm sure, like the audience, we're blessed to actually have you here. That is profound.
Thank you.
That is profound because you've actually gotten past something that you say that there had no cure for,
Right.
but you're here today.
Yes, sir.
Wow. I mean, oh my God, you deserve a lot for that. Um, how did you discover your passion for entrepreneurship and empowerment coaching?
So for me, I've always been the type of leader where success is not defined by what I do. To me, success is defined by how you help others. And so that's always been something that's been ingrained in my head. Engraved in my head. I'm the oldest sibling. And unfortunately, I was like most people, grew up, with my mom, and I knew who my father was, but I didn't really grow up with him until I was 15. So during that role, I was the man of the house, and I had to be the one that kind of make sure everybody else was successful. And what it really taught me was that for me, I truly get a thrill out of seeing somebody else win. And I know I'm in the front now, and I'm the speaker, and I'm doing all these great things. To me, the moments where it's that aha moment for somebody that makes me smile, because again, it's a part of my purpose. Because I also know too, a lot of people hide behind the smile. Like I remember when I was going through depression and anxiety, when I was going through treatment, I was hiding behind a smile. And so now I try to see past that and try to just see that person for who they are and kind of help them become that individual. And so for me, that's where my passion comes from, helping people. Now, granted, don't get me wrong, I love to get paid. Don't get me wrong. But I always tell people the reason why I love to get paid for what I do is because then it opens up my schedule for me to do even more for the next person. And so that's really my mindset, and that's really what led me to saying, you know what, I want to go work with that person that's struggling in business. Like I want to go work with that person that everybody gave up on. Like I want that person that people turn their back on and they about to fail. I want that person, because at that point, once you realize that you have nothing else to lose, you have so much more to gain. And I believe that success is really just a bridge for me to help the next person. And so that's what led me to, wanting to empower other businesses, individuals, you name it, and that's why I'm here today.
Wow. So where were you originally born and raised from?
Enterprise, Alabama. You're gonna hear this country accent. Typically when I say Enterprise, people think I'm talking about the rent a car center, and I'm like, no, it's a small city in Alabama that's probably about an hour and a half from the beach. But that's where I was born and raised. I've been there 18 years of my life. And then when I went off to college, I never looked back. I go home occasionally, but if typically I'm in Birmingham, Alabama now, and so that's really a bigger city, and it's more of my speed.
Wow. Well, just so you know, I'm from Mobile.
Okay, so you're familiar around that area then.
Definitely. So what inspired you to start your own business?
So me personally, and it just may come off wrong, but I knew for since being young, I didn't really like somebody telling me what to do. You know, I didn't like somebody controlling what I do because I always felt like they couldn't help unless they were able to help me see the bigger picture. I wanted to be in positions to where I benefit from my talent. There's been times where people will say, "Hey, before we do offering in the church, for example, before we do offering, go tell your story." And I hated that, and that's just an example, but I hated that because I knew why they were doing it, because they wanted me to share my testimony, and now it's going to be more money for them. And so then my wheels started turning, and I said, you know what if I keep this same energy for myself, and I'm able to say, you know what, all right, I'm my own business person. I can control my own schedule. I can control my own prices. And that's what led me to do it. It's that freedom I'm chasing. It's not the money. It's that freedom. That freedom to say, hey, today I want to go to the beach. Tomorrow I want to do this. Like I don't want to be on anybody else's schedule. And so that's really what led me to want to become my own boss.
Wow. So did you, in particular, when you just was thinking about doing your own company, let's say when you were much younger, maturing, coming into this age where you are now, is there a particular thing that you always wanted to do for the rest of your life?
Travel and speak. Believe it or not, travel and speak. Like that's always been my thing, because I'm killing two birds in one stone. I get to see the world, and then I also get to make a difference. I'm a big fan of people like Tony Robbins, Les Brown, Ike Johnson, Eric Thomas, Walter Bond, Anton Gunn. And so when I was younger, I would watch these guys. And as I would watch them, I would say, hey, they're in Africa today, but then tomorrow they just got on the jet to go to London. And so it made me realize, like, hey, I can do that too. And so I started to work toward it. And before you know it, I started to find myself in the same room as some of these individuals. And so it's just for me looking back as a younger, I'm glad that I was a big dreamer, because man, that dream now is starting to taste like a little reality. And I'm a big fan of that.
Wow. So, how do you define empowerment, and why is it important in today's society?
So empowerment, the way I define it is simply being able to look within yourself and realizing that you have the tools you need to overcome that situation. And so, why it's important in this society is that now I think because of social media, it makes it so easy to see what somebody else is doing. And now you want what they have instead of saying, hey, I have some tools myself. Let me go build on this. Let me show the world, despite what I go through, I can become what I desire to be. I don't have to be the next Rashad Hayes. I don't have to be the next Charles King. I could be the next me. Not saying that I don't have to follow you, but I want you to know that there's special, like there's a uniqueness about you being yourself. And so that's why I think it's so important, because we got a lot of copycats in the world, and it's doing a disservice to the people that need to hear your story.
So, a thing that I want our audience to gain or gather from these nuggets that you're dropping is, what would you tell the individual, that wants to get into entrepreneurship? They're struggling because they really don't know a way, and they don't have a resource to tell them what it is that they should be looking to do. What can you tell that individual?
So let's talk in terms of cake, right? So I don't know about you, but I'm a baker myself. Before I can even bake a cake, I got to know what type of cake I want. So then I can go and get the ingredients. So before I can do anything with business, I have to sit down and self-evaluate and say, hey, what's my plan? What it is that I want? Because a lot of times we don't get to where we want to go. It's because we don't know where we are. Like a GPS can't work that way. Like a GPS only works once it determines where you are, and then it can lead you to that path. And so what I would tell that individual is to really sit down and ask yourself, do I want to live, do I want to achieve this goal because it's something that I want? Or do I want to achieve this goal because I see somebody else is doing it and I want what they have? And what I discovered is, unfortunately, a lot of people just want what other people have because they see the fancy cars, they see the money, they see the clothes, but they don't necessarily see the process that that individual had to go through. And so before I could tell you to go pursue your dream, we first got to know, do you know who you are? Like, do you know what you possess? Because everybody's not equipped to, and I hate to say it like this, but everybody's not equipped to be that leader, right? But you have to look in that mirror and discover, okay, hey, what am I going to do? Because as you know, running a business is not easy. It's you got to make a lot of tough decisions. A lot of stuff is relying on you. And so although we make it look good, I want people to know that it get messy in that kitchen when you baking that cake. You got flour going everywhere, like that's why they tell you to put on an apron. And so that's really what I would tell them, not to discourage anybody, but to ask them, hey, what is it that I truly want? Because you may say, I want to make $1 million, and I'm going to follow up and ask you, why do you want to make $1 million? And if you can't tell me why, then that means you don't really want to make $1 million. At some point, you got to know what's a realistic number for you and how are you going to get there. Because then when you do that, you can then break it down, and before you know it, it's able to be obtainable because you actually took the time to break down the message and figure out what it is that you need to do to become the person that you desire to be.
Wow. That's food for thought. That's food for thought because that's very, very true. And I'm one that will tell you that originally, and being a business person and actually doing some of the things I've done all my life, I actually originally, when I popped out and I wanted to go to business, I went on basically what I knew and not the whole structure of running a business. And it turned out to be the most difficult thing in the world. As you talk about the flour all over the place, the kitchen was messy. I had to go back and I had to start over again before I realized exactly what I was missing. But what you just said was absolutely true. And I think that people should actually pick up on that and learn from that. Can you share a success story of how you've helped an individual or organization overcome a significant challenge?
Man, there's a lot I can pull from. But in particular, I'm going to pull from one I know that she's okay with me sharing this story. So I had a young lady about 2 years ago. She was in law school, and she reached out to me and was just like, "Hey, Rashad, I don't know what it is, but I can't get over this hump. Like like when I'm here, I feel like I'm an imposter. When I'm here, I feel like I don't belong here." And so we probably spent about a good 8 weeks of just having virtual sessions. She was out of state, but we had virtual sessions, and before you know it, what we really discovered was her father passed away at a young age, and she was still dealing with that trauma of her father not being there. And it wasn't until we actually broke it down that she felt like an imposter because she felt like she didn't have what everybody else had in the classroom, which was a supportive father. And once we really got through that, the next thing that ended up happening was, a few years later, she ended up calling me and saying, "Hey, I'm graduating, I'm passing, I'm done with school and everything is working out." And so for me, the biggest success was really helping her find out who she was and giving her the tools to know that despite what she goes through, she's going to be able to build through that. And so that's wins for me. Like when you bring me in as a speaker, I'm going to give you tools because the goal is I don't want you to need me. Like I don't want you to feel like you got to call me every time you got a problem. I want you to have the tools you need to say, you know what? Hey, he gave me what I needed, and I might need a refresher, but I'm not going to need anything else. And he helped me get to that point. And so that's really one of the greatest stories that I can really tell. Then besides, recently I spoke to a GED class, and I got a text from the teacher a few days ago, telling me, "Hey, I don't know what you said, but this is the highest amount of people we had complete this class since bringing you in." And so it's just one of those things. Like for me, those are like the little success stories where it's not really about me, but it's really about seeing everybody else succeed. Like I want you to know, like you bring me in to speak to your business, I want you to turn around and be like, "Man, we made $1 million this year. We made 2 million." Like I want you to be able to say that. And that's for me, that's what true success is. Like I told you earlier, success for me is not about what I do. It's about what can I help you do to achieve your dreams. And so those would be the two stories that I know I had permission to share with that, because I know, let's be honest, everybody doesn't want to admit they need help. Some people would like to, "Oh yeah, I did it on my own. I got it out the mud." I hate that mentality, but that's what some people want. And so I don't have to be in the spotlight. I already always tell myself a good pound cake gonna speak for itself. And if you eat cake enough, you're gonna look at it and be like, "Hey, they know what they doing." And that's really the mindset that I carry with everything I do.
So, what are some common misconceptions about entrepreneurship that you've often encountered?
Oh man. Most people do not think, they think, oh yeah, you got all the freedom. It's better than 9 to 5. Man, sometimes entrepreneurship is 24/7. Like it's times where I'm laying down and I'm thinking about, oh, this business idea. Most people think that because they see how I'm able to move and be free, but they don't see that I'm always thinking about if I don't do this work, I got to go back to work. Like I got to go back and work for somebody else. And so that's really the biggest misconception is thinking that because we're business owners that life is easier. No, it's literally now I got to go hunt and I got to go get what I want in order to sustain the lifestyle I'm trying to live and business fees and everything else. So I think that's the biggest misconception is that people think you made it because you have this entrepreneur title. If anything, you just got more problems. A dollar problem could be the same as $1 million problem. In the sense, it's all about that individual and what they're doing to take care of that problem.
So, can you share with us, like in the beginning when you started your business, what was that like for you?
I will be honest. January 2021 was when I officially started my business. I looked at my wife. I cried on her shoulders because at the end of January, I had $0. I had all these people talking about, oh, we're going to support you. We're going to support you. I cried like a baby because I was thinking that, okay, yeah, they're going to do this. But what I wasn't prepared for was, man, that's Rashad. Why he charging that much? He must think he better than everybody else. So then what I found myself doing was I wasn't selling anything. And at that time I had books, t-shirts, or just classes in general, speaking fees. Oh, he too expensive. But then I realized that wasn't my customer because they grew up watching me. So they still see me as them. And so I think another thing that most people got to understand is when you start this entrepreneurship journey, you can't go back to the field that you used to be in because they're not going to respect you for what you are as the business. They're going to be like, hey, I need that discount or hook me up with this. And so that really shifted my gears. And then I got to the point, I don't want you to know me. Like it's cool if you know me, but if you don't know me, but you know my product and you know my service, that's a win for me. And that's really what kind of changed my life is that I had to really have that hard truth, right? Was hey, everybody's not gonna support you, or they're gonna support you after you make it because everybody's faith is not like yours. They can't always see what you see.
Yeah, that is true. How do you approach helping individuals and organizations set and achieve their goals?
So again, I talk about cake and with everything I do. If you would never hear me not talking about cake, right? And so the first thing I do is I come in with a recipe and I come in with my own personal recipe just to give you an example. And I walk you through these exercises for you to think about the stuff that you didn't think about. So I may tell you, hey, let's talk about your failures. Like that's why I'm here. Like I'm not here for you because you just made $1,000 in one day. No, I'm here to talk about your struggles and your shortcomings. And the more that you're able to expose yourself and be vulnerable with me, is the more I'm able to do more for you because now I can work with things. If I got an egg in my hand, I can't use that egg until I crack that shell. Most people want you to just try to extract the egg. No, why do I got to extract it from you? If you need my help, let's crack this shell. And so then I can show you how to use it because I'm gonna be honest. I know you know the story of Humpty Dumpty. If Humpty Dumpty would have known he was an egg, he wouldn't have been on that wall without no safety net. Like that's why they struggled to put him back together because he didn't know who he was. And so I think that's what I try to do is help businesses and just people in general. Who are you first before we do anything else? Who are you? Because a lot of times we don't know because we're used to the labels, we're used to what people are telling us who we are, but we don't know. And so that's really where I come in and kind of have that self, that realization. Like you typically when I come in, people are going to cry. Like we're gonna pull out these emotions, but it's only because I want to get to your heart because I don't want to make you feel good and then I leave tomorrow and then now you're going back to the same stuff. And so I come in and that's how I really just do my magic. Sometimes I can't explain it. I just say God just takes over and boom, I just go from there.
Wow. In your experience, what are some key qualities that successful entrepreneurs possess?
I'm going to say communication, I'm going to say self-awareness, and I'm going to say ambition. Those are my top three. Communication is being able to, and when I say communication, I mean like receive it as well. You know, sometimes your product is not as good as you think it is, and you have to learn to take that and say, okay, I understand. Because if you're buying your own product, then you're not making no money. You know, you're not doing anything. But communication also means being able to ask, hey, I need help. Hey, let me put my pride aside and say, hey, I know you're doing something similar. Do you mind if I shadow you? Like, do you mind if I learn from you? Like, I'm not trying to steal your clients. I just want to get a better understanding. And then, like I said, self-awareness, being able to understand where you are. And you once you know where you are, like my mentors, they make more money than I do. I'm not worried about that. I had to start telling myself they're in their 50s. I'm in my 30s. I just turned 30 in December. I got to stop trying to compare myself to where they are at 50 because that's not a true reality for me. I need to see, okay, where they were 30, where were they are? Okay, where were they? And then I'm able to kind of say, okay, I'm doing good, but I can do better. And now I'm able to go at my own pace. And so that's why I said self-awareness is a good one because that's going to be something that you need in order to really get to where you want to go. Because if you have this whole Madonna personality, oh, I'm this, I'm that, but it's not matching up with who you are, you're not going anywhere, you know?
So let me ask you this: when you first meet your client or you take a client on, do you try to establish a relationship where you really get to know the client before the business, or do you do them simultaneously?
So it's a combination of both, right? So typically before I get a new client, we do a consultation where I'm just asking you about you. And you know, that's that time where people want to put on a Sunday's best and they come in, oh, I do this and I do that. And so I take a mental note, but I don't say, okay, this is that person. Like I know they say you got one time to make a good impression. I personally don't believe in that. And here's why. You know, sometimes you may not be at your best right now. And so you just showing up. And I want to commend you for just showing up, but I don't want to punish you and make myself think, oh, that's who they are 24/7. No, they just maybe having a bad day. And so I typically just come in and just almost similar to what we'll do here. Like I may ask you about, I see a football is up there. So I may ask you, hey, what's your favorite football team? And just get to know you. And then eventually, as I see your business, now I can understand why you run the business the way you do. A lot of times, a lot of leaders will put their personality inside their business. Sometimes they don't know how to separate that. And so I'm able to see that. And I'm also going to talk to your staff. Hey, what you think about your boss? Just between you and I, what you think about your boss? Because I don't want to hear you just give me all this good stuff because that's not why I'm here. I think sometimes we don't want to admit that we have problems. Instead, we like to act like everything is all good and everything is working perfectly, that we end up putting ourselves out of position because sometimes we need that reality. Hey, I'm struggling. And before you know it, your blessing is right there to kind of help you get through it.
Mhm. So, how do you navigate the intersection of race and entrepreneurship in your work?
Now that's a tough one. And here's the crazy part, believe it or not. Oh man, this is gonna be a tough one, but I'm just gonna say it. I get more respect for my counterparts than I do for individuals that look like you and I.
Mm.
Those individuals for me, when it comes to speaking, oh, that's too much. That's too much. Oh, we can't afford that. Instead of seeing the value that I bring compared to the counterparts, hey, that's your fee. Okay, hey, let's do it. And what I really discovered, I had to ask myself when it came to race, was that a lot of times because of the historical trauma, I do want to acknowledge that. I know we've been through so much, but sometimes I feel like we have this crab in the bucket mentality. But the issue with the crab in the bucket mentality is that crabs were never meant to be in the bucket. And most people think that they're trying to pull each other down. And in nature, crabs actually link up together to help each other. And so I think it's one of those things where I always try to tell people is that when it comes race, I know I'm a black man and I know you see that I'm a black man, but I also want you to see my heart as well. Like I also want you to be able to close your eyes and say, okay, can this person really help me? And that's really how I try to position myself. And before you know it, I found myself being in more rooms where I'm the only one that looks like me. And it's like, I'm like, okay, how do I help bring somebody else into these spaces as well? And so now I'm starting to reach back and lift up and just trying to figure out ways to really help the community by not only going out and doing the work, but also showing that, hey, I have tattoos, for example. When I'm on stage, I'm not always in the suit. I may show you my tattoos, but then I'm going to also make sure you know I'm getting my PhD. Let you know that you can't judge me based off my cover. Instead, you got to see the contents of my heart and just listen to what I'm saying to really truly get a better understanding of me. And I will tell you, it's been times where people have come to me and just be like, "Thank you, Rashad. You know, I never knew somebody that grew up in poverty-stricken area, that grew up without his father, like that grew up that had every opportunity to go be a statistic, but he decided to do better for his life. And now it's making me realize that I got to give everybody a chance." And so I'm just trying to show people, like, in order for us to really break through and get into this society of being able to work together, we got to be willing to show people where we are and who we are and being unapologetically us. Like, I'm not telling you to go into a room and think, oh, I need to shave my head because, they're going to look at me a certain way. No, show up as you and then show them your heart and show them what you're capable of doing. And that's really how I take that approach. Like, I love when I walk in, they see I'm young, black, and tattooed. I love it because that first 5 minutes they're looking like what he finna teach us. But by the end of the session, everybody's crying. Man, I needed to hear that, hugging me, and I'm like, mission complete. And so that's really how I take it as a badge of honor to be in these spaces, but also to really set the path. I have this tattooed on my arm. Do not go where the path may lead. Go instead where there's no path and leave a trail. I just got to make sure that there's people that's going to be willing to follow, because I know there's a lot of a sense of entitlement when it comes to certain things as well. Because you ain't got to give me my 40 acres in the mule. I'm going to go get it myself. I'm just going to be honest with you. I'm not going to wait on you to give me that, because for me waiting still shows that I got to rely on you to give me something. I can't. I got to go get it. Like, I already faced death. Like, when I was hooked up to that machine fighting for my life, I don't have time to think, oh man, they're going to give it to me tomorrow. No, I got to do what I can to go get it. Like, that's really my mentality.
Well, you know, um, I do agree with a lot of those things that you were saying. You know, I don't think it's meant the way it does that it comes across though. Because there are some people that kind of like they do take the wrong road, I think, when it comes to just dealing with supporting businesses of people that like yours and mine.
Right.
And so I know that, they, well, and when I don't want to speak in generalities like that, but there are some people that actually can cause something that seems like a dysfunctionality. And it's like, you know, which is why primarily I'll just tell you, I know how I like to scale my business.
Right.
And so when I scale my business, that's how I target. And so I know that it's not gonna be for everybody.
Right.
And so that's that's interesting because I've heard what you just stated more than one time.
Yeah.
Um
I tell people, everybody doesn't like German chocolate cake, but you got some that do, and so that's really how I maneuver, brother. I'm telling you, but I will tell you, as I get older, I hope that changes. I have hope for it, but I also understand why. I'm not going to sit up here and say I don't understand why people do certain things, but I will say I'm working on trying to change things by my action and not just by my words.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. You started when you came here because this is where it starts, and we're catered and we're specified to target those underserved communities
Yes,
so they
sir.
can understand that this has to change for a lot of people.
Yes.
So what strategies do you use to help individuals build resilience in the face of adversity?
Man, I'm glad you asked me that question. I think sometimes people don't realize that they already got through that situation. They just dealing with the shockwave. And
Hmm.
so what I mean by that is that, okay, if my car was to get repoed, my car is repossessed already. My
Mhm.
next step should be, okay, how do I get my car to repossession? But here's the bigger thing. My car didn't just get repoed because out of nowhere. That means I was failing to make a payment on some way. And so I walk people down that traumatic experience to say, okay, hey, the issue didn't start here. This is just a result of an issue that went, not addressed. And because we never addressed this issue, this is why. And so it's almost like that aha moment, and you get your power back. Like prime example, I don't know if you're into Marvel, but if Spider-Man never get bit by the spider, he doesn't become Spider-Man.
True.
He doesn't get that power. And I'm not telling you to get bit by a spider because that's a movie now. Listeners, if you're listening right now, that's a movie. Look, you should be suing me. Rashad said go get bit by a spider. No, but what I am telling you is that we survive a lot of stuff, but we don't allow ourselves to process. And until we learn to process what we've been through, we're going to struggle to get to that next step and become resilient. And so a lot of times, like for me in my personal story, I didn't realize I was resilient until I actually sat back and analyzed everything that I've been through. And when I sat back and I analyzed it, I was like, man, I've been doing this all my life. So when cancer happened, cancer wasn't the worst thing I ever been through. Like I remember when I was 14 years old, staying with my mom, I found the eviction letter. I found the eviction notice. And I told my mom, I never forget it when they came back from vacation. I said, Mama, I love you, but I can't go with you. And most black mamas, they gonna slap in your mouth and say, boy, you're crazy. You coming with me. But my mother just looked at me and said, okay, son, you can stay. And so all my life I've been battling through these adverse situations, and so for me, once I sat back and said, you know what, this ain't nothing new. And this is when I came up with the phrase, the past is the study guide, the present is a quiz, and the future is a test. Because everything you see once, you're gonna see it again. It's just gonna be in some different form or fashion. And that's just why I love the analogies of cake, because you're gonna use three primary ingredients. You gotta have flour, butter, and eggs. You're gonna always use that no matter what. Now I know you got some vegans that can come in and make some other stuff, but once you understand the key ingredients, it doesn't matter what you go through. And so my goal is to help people go back into that time where they went through that adverse situation and look at it and pay attention to any small clues that you may have overlooked. And so that's really what I do. And it ends up teaching you something where now next when you call me again, it's just a refresher. It's just making sure, okay, hey, we could talk about this now. And so that's really what I do to help people get to that point. And I do it in a fun way where you're not going to forget. Like people love cake. Like I kid you not. Like I'm wearing my hoodie now where it's cake. Like everybody loves it, and it's something that people want to keep talking about. But what I'm really saying is that in order for you to eat cake, you gotta appreciate those vegetables. You gotta have those vegetable moments in life. And we may not always want to eat that broccoli. We may not always want to eat that asparagus, but it's going to be worth it when we get a piece of that cake and understanding that it's a healthy balance, because too much cake causes cavities. But we know that. We know that.
So, have you ever had a client that was difficult in understanding the processes that you were explaining?
So yes, and I will tell you, the first thing I always tell that client is that it doesn't matter. It's two ways we can do this. I can be honest with you and help you break through now, or I can just drag you along and make you pay my monthly fee and take all your money. I don't want to take all your money. My goal is to make sure I literally tell my clients, I don't want you to need me. I want you to get with me one time and be like, okay, I can move forward. And people may think, well, how do you make money that way? Listen, if I helped you solve your biggest problems, you're gonna run into somebody else that got bigger problems, and you're gonna be able to say, hey, Rashad, yeah, the cake man, yeah, go to him. Like he's the solution. And so that's really what I do now. And so I have had patients, or excuse me, not patients, but clients where, oh, what can you tell me? You ain't never been through nothing. And when I share my story, it's like, oh, my bad, but I also understand that it's not their fault. A lot of times that these are individuals that have been hurt before, and now they have this wall. And now it's my job to, like Rapunzel, we had to call Rapunzel to tell her to let down her long hair. I have to do that for you. I lead with empathy. I'm not going to give you sympathy. I'm not going to say, oh, I feel sorry for you. No, I'm going to jump in this hole with you, show you how I got out, and say, when you're ready, let me know. Let's get to work.
Mm, interesting process. How do you stay motivated and inspired in your own entrepreneurial journey?
Man, and that's again, being 22 and being hooked up to a machine, fighting for your life. It just kind of changes your perspective on a lot of things. Um, and every time I think about giving up, I think about being in that chair, and I think about just watching the drugs just drop, just going right into my veins. And so for me, that's all the motivation I need is that I still got air in my body, I still got air in my lungs. I don't know if you ever had to do a PET scan before, but what's crazy about a PET scan is that it tells you when to breathe and hold your breath. And when I went through that, that was the first time that I ever recognized the air in my lungs. And so for me, that motivation is simple. You are here for a reason. They told you you had an incurable disease and that you'll be fighting for the rest of your life. But here you are living your best life. Here you are, despite the chemotherapies, despite the Rituxan, like here you are still fighting and making a difference. And so that's really how I just stay motivated by looking in the mirror. I became my biggest fan. I became my biggest fan, and I'm proud of myself for. Let me rephrase that. I'm proud of my younger self for not giving up, because if he would have gave up, I wouldn't be here today.
I like that. Got to stay motivated.
Yes, sir.
What role does mentorship play in your work, and how do you encourage mentorship among your clients?
Man, mentorship has not only changed my life, but saved my life. They always say if you're the smartest person in the room, you need to get in another room. And so that's really what I do. Like I said earlier, my mentors, there's a lot of them that make 30K a speech, and they're working with businesses like Disney. They're working with businesses like Dairy Queen, Jersey Mike Subs. And so for me, just being in that room is showing me the dream bigger. Like how I would have never thought that there's a conference where people from all of the Dairy Queens come together and they meet about leadership. I would have never known that if I wasn't a part of this group. And it's a small, intimate group, and I get a chance to really understand what is there to offer, because you're only going to go as far as you can see. And so most people get caught up in sight. I get caught up in vision. Like I'm thinking about that stuff that's going to be for me 5-10 years from now, but it's going to be me doing what I got to do now in order to get to that point. And so as far as mentorship, I always try to tell people is that align yourself with somebody that's going to push you when you don't feel like being pushed. It's days my mentors get on my nerves. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'll be ready to be like, "Hey, look, I did this. Look at me, I did it." And they remind me, like, "Okay, and what's next?" Yeah, like you did a good job, but what's next? And so my mentors help keep me grounded. And as far as my clients, I always tell them that find you somebody as you're trying to figure out your next goal and dream. Find you somebody that you can get close to and just learn that process, because I don't always have that answer, and I'm very transparent when I tell people, hey, that's something I can't do, but I can help you grab the skills to reach out to that person and do like a warm handoff if need be. And so that's really how I look at mentorship. It's truly, what do I want to become? Or what do I not want to become? Because I done had some bad mentors too. And so I'm learning that there's value in good mentors and bad mentors.
Mm. Can you share some practical tips for aspiring entrepreneurs looking to start their own businesses?
So practical tips. So the first thing I say is do research in your market. You're not the first person with this idea. Maybe you will be, but there's going to be somebody else that's doing something similar to what you're doing. Research your market. See how they're working, seeing what's their grounds and their operations. And for me, I think doing the research early on saves you a lot of heartache. It saves you a lot of time as well, because now you understand how this works, and now it's time to implement your system. Another thing I would say, another practical tip I would say is, man, if you don't do anything else, understand how businesses work. Like understand the importance of an LLC or S corp, or like make sure you know that research first, because a lot of times people get caught up in a business that they don't understand how to protect themselves within the business. And so make sure you do those two things. And I think if you start there, the rest is going to follow, because now you have an example of something similar that you want to do. And then you also have the business protection, and you don't have to worry about somebody coming after you and your assets, and you're protected in a sense. And so that's really what I would tell people, is just take the time to really do the research. Like don't allow the excitement to get you out of position. Because again, if you pull out a cake out of the oven too early, that cake gonna fall. you know, or if you run around and around that cake, it's gonna fall, and you don't want that situation to fall and be on bad terms.
The cake all over the floor.
Hey, yes, sir. Now you got bigger problems. Now you got to figure out if you're going to be motivated to go through that process again. And unfortunately, I've seen so many people lose their dreams that way, where things happen and now they don't even want to pick it back up. Now it's, nah, I'm not worried about it. I quit. I give up.
How do you balance the financial aspects of entrepreneurship with the social impact you aim to create?
Whew. Let me see how I want to answer that question, because that's a good one. Because sometimes, and I'm just going to be transparent, sometimes I had to turn stuff down, not because I didn't want to, but because it wasn't time yet. I think sometimes I may have a school that reach out to me and they may say, hey, we need you to come down to Mobile, but all we got is a $200 budget. The problem with that is that I have to be realistic to say, okay, how is this going to affect the business? Do I have some things in place that's going to make sure that people know that this is my business and not just a hobby I do? And so I always try to tell myself that as I continue to maneuver and grow the business, then I'm going to be able to go back and make the social impact that I want to do, because now I can use my own funds and not have to worry about somebody tell me what I should do or how I got to do it this way. And so I always tell myself that for me, I'm doing everything now. So then when I'm hit that 40s to 50s, I can give back and make the impact that I want to make to help change people. And I will be honest, like even on social media, I'm very transparent about my journey, and I tell people, hey, this is how I get to this point. This is what I did. This is where I'm going, because I'm not exactly where I want to be yet, but I also know it's a process and I'm willing to trust and I'm willing to follow.
Wow. Now that's very deep and profound, because I think a lot of times, a lot of people, when let's say they're not really on that focus and actually trying to get to that goal or get to that finish line, they're kind of like all over the place.
Right.
And like sometimes they like decide that they just might want to give up and just say, okay, well, I just got this far, so I'm fine with that. Have you ever run across a situation like that?
Earlier when I first started, it was a thing where I was making more money at my 9 to 5 than I was in the business. And so I was just like, why not just give up on this business and I just focus on this 9 to 5, until I realized that a salary isn't nothing but a pill they give you to kill your dreams. And don't get me wrong, like I don't I'm not gonna knock anybody that has a 9 to 5. Like you got to do what you got to do, but don't forget about your dreams either. Like don't forget about the things that you want in life. And so that's what I do is I put my dreams ahead of anything, and I tell myself, hey, if I got to go to this 9 to 5, I'm going to give that same 9 to 5 energy to myself when I'm back home, I'm back in my office. So then that way, this dream could become something that's sustainable and something that I do for the rest of my life.
How do you approach networking and building relationships in the business world?
See, so that's really my biggest approach, right? I networking to me is everything, because it's just like how they say back in school, or when it comes to the job, it's not what you do, it's who you know. And so I'm 6'2", right? So for a lot of times I'm tall in stature for most people, so I already stand out. And so I use my uniqueness to gravitate people toward me. And I realized that in doing that, as I build this relationship with that individual, I don't know who that individual knows. And so I treat this as an opportunity to say, you know what, hey, this is what I do. I help individuals overcome situations and improve their lives with cake. And I know when they hear that cake, they get intrigued. And so when they do that, if they don't remember my name, they're going to at least remember cake. And so cake keeps going. And before you know it, there's been times where I got an email that said, hey, you're the cake guy. And I just get to laughing and I'm like, hey, yeah, that's me. But I really value networking, and networking has really changed my life to the fact that this year alone, because I have networked so much, that I haven't had to ask anybody to book me to speak. People have been coming to me and saying, hey, can we book you? Hey, what's your fee? Like, hey, we know you're probably busy, but if you have this availability, and I love it, because truth be told, you know, I'm not gonna say I'm not busy, but the fact that you recognize that it lets me know that you see that I'm working, and I'm grateful for it, and I get so excited for it. And so, I think that all stems from networking. Like I'm the type of person where if an event planner books me to speak, I'm going to have a gift for the event planner, and I'm going to say, "Hey, thank you for doing this. Here you go." Not to say, "Oh, I need more gigs," but to pretty much just let them know I appreciate their relationship and their collaboration. And what ends up happening is because they remember that, and I see the value of them. When somebody else say, "Hey, I need a speaker," they're going to say, "Hey, have you thought about Rashad Hayes?" And before you know it, they're really speaking about my product for themselves, and I don't have to advertise myself as much.
Mm. Now I like that a whole lot. I mean, like, but do you advertise like on your website or whatever have you about bookings and speaking engagements, things of like that?
So yes, on my website, I have myself as the resilient baker, burnout prevention specialist, and so I have like my calendar, but I don't necessarily push it where I'm like, hey, book me. Instead, because I don't want you to just see me as a speaker. Like, granted, I speak, but I'm also a thought leader, and if you think I'm a speaker, most people don't have a speaker's budget. Like most people, if you think about it, most people are not thinking, oh, let me put a speaker's budget. No, most people are thinking professional development. And so it's also knowing the terms. So then that way you're not eliminating what you could get. Because what if that speaker's budget is only $1,000, but your fee is 5,000? You're going to be losing something. But if you know your professional development and they're going to have a budget for that. So it's just like knowing how to speak the language. So I have keywords like burnout prevention, but I also try to tell people is that my messages are able to be catered to any audience because everybody's going to go through some adversity in some form of fashion. And just to bring some human aspect to cake, like you got to think about it. It's in the oven, it's dark, it's hot, it's cramped up. But if it trusts the process, it becomes something beautiful. And I think that's how we are as people.
Is that your catchphrase or your niche, the cake?
Yeah, so my catchphrase is "Don't burn your cake." I don't know if you can see behind me, but I have an apron. So yeah, that's my catchphrase, and I'm gonna tell you, I'm in the process with trademark. I'm waiting on them to make it official. But when I say it's a blessing, because now that's what people tell me. Hey, when I think about cake now, I think about you, and I'm like, yes, I got something that people won't forget. And so it's to the point. At times I had to order some more T-shirts where people are fighting over T-shirts now. I had one of my coworkers. She texted me. She said, "Man, my daughter took my shirt." And I was like, "What you mean?" She's like, "Yeah, she won't give it back to me. She loves the cake." And I just started laughing. I'm like, "All right, cool." And so it's something that I'm very excited about, and I'm excited to see where it is. 3 years ago when I made the phrase, I would have never thought that it'd be impactful like this. I never would have thought that people would love to hear it. And so now I'm excited to see as I continue to grow where it can go.
What advice do you have for entrepreneurs facing setbacks or failures?
Mm. Fail is your first attempt in learning. Don't
Mm.
be afraid to look at that lesson. Also, I think you have to separate pride from failure. I think sometimes we have this pride, right? Because we don't want to fail because we're thinking about all those people that said we weren't gonna make it, and now we're like, man, they were right. No, if I fail, that means something didn't go right. I got to get back in the kitchen and adjust my recipe. And so that's really what I tell. That's advice I would tell people is fail on purpose. Because if you're failing, you at least try. And when you try long enough, you're going to eventually get it right. And now you're going to be thankful for those moments that you did fail because now it's showing you where your blind spots are. Like there's literally telling you, okay, something is going wrong here. Let me go back and analyze it and become self-aware to figure out how do I fix this.
So, how do you measure success in your work with clients?
So to me, success is when a client can identify what made them who they are and where they want to go. To me, that's how I do it. And here's why. Once you know who you are, you understand the tools that you need to become that person that you desire to be. Because I believe every 5 years we evolve. Like the Rashad from 5 years ago when I was 25, I wasn't thinking about stuff like this. Like I don't know, I don't even know what I was thinking about, but I know it wasn't this, because I wasn't exposed to new things. And so I want people to be able to tell me who they are and be confident in it. Like if nobody else supported you, would you be able to stand and show the world that, hey, this is me? And so that's really how I measure success. Because again, I want you to fail. Not saying, oh, I'm rooting for you to fail, but I want you to fail because it lets me know you're trying and you're going to master that recipe. And when you master that recipe, your life is going to change.
Mhm. So, how do you prioritize self care and well being as an entrepreneur and coach?
Now I have to do that because I preach it. I preach it. So for me, it's times where my self care is real simple. I get in the car and I don't listen to no music. I don't even think I talk. I just drive and I allow myself to just be in the moment because I'm always using my voice. And so before I can pour into somebody else, I have to continue to, take care of me. And I'm gonna be real, and I hope I bless you with this. I stopped pouring from my own cup. I don't pour from my cup anymore. I'm gonna bless you with my overflow. Because if I can't take care of me, I can't take care of you. And why
Mm.
am I going to take something out of me to take care of you? That don't belong to you. That's me. And so that's what I do. And so I learned to be under the spigot and continue to take care of me. And so then that water that if you connect it to me, that water that's gonna come out of my bucket, it's gonna hit you because you're in close proximity. And so that's what I truly believe in.
Oh, wow. Now that's interesting too. Now, look, that should be another one of your cliches that you use, and another one of your catchphrases. Show the water falling, and it's
Yes, I
hitting
can do that.
you.
I can do that.
um, what are some trends or changes you see in the world of entrepreneurship and empowerment coaching?
Oh, okay, that's a good one. I think too, as AI continues to be something that's innovative, I'm interested to see innovation. Like I'm kind of excited about it. I know some people are afraid of AI, but I think artificial intelligence could be something it could be helpful if you know how to use it, right? And so I see some cool stuff happening, and I'm excited to kind of see that next great idea. Like for example, and this is gonna sound crazy, but I grew up watching the Jetsons, right? Like I've been waiting on a flying car for the longest, and like for me, like I get excited about that, and so I'm excited for that one entrepreneur that creates that piece that helps us get to the flying cars. And so I think that's what really excites me about this journey is okay, what's going to happen next, And so I think as we go through this process, I'm just a fan. Like I'm a nerd with a lot of stuff. And so like there's refrigerators now that you can look on your phone and see what's in your refrigerator. Like I get excited about stuff like that. And so for me, I'm just excited to see what entrepreneur is going to bring the next big thing and how we can take that and make it even better.
Well, I think probably one thing of note is probably the government has not allowed Apple to fully incorporate that flying car that they have. They
Right.
uh, they announced it like 3-4 months ago.
Man. So we getting close. We getting close.
I don't know about that one either, though. How do you incorporate DEI principles in your coaching practice?
Man, now that's a tough subject too. I don't know, being in Alabama, as far as DEI, they're getting to the point. I think in October they're trying to eliminate it. But I think for me, you have to acknowledge DEI. You have to, because again, for me, like all sugars are not the same. You got your brown sugar, you got your light brown sugar, dark brown, and like they all have their own different sweetness. And so, like I always try to tell people, me acknowledging who I am as a person, where I come from, is not to say, oh, I'm better than anybody, but to simply say, hey, there are certain things that I do culturally. There are certain things that I respond to. And a lot of people like to say, "Oh, well, everybody is equal." The truth is, I don't like this idea of equality, right? I want equity, right? I want you to meet me where I am. Like giving me a car is cool, but if I ain't got the gas to put in the car, I can't go nowhere. So ask me what it is that I need to be successful. And so that's really what I try to do is that when I meet with people is that I don't come in like I know all the answers. I come in saying, okay, hey, where are your shortcomings so we can help build that up So then that way we can work through that. And so that's really what I really try to do.
Wow. I tell you, your answer to that question, and I've asked that of several guests, and there are many different answers because I know it's kind of hard to just say, when it comes to DEI, you don't really, if you say the real thing or what's really on your mind, a lot of people are going to get offended.
Right.
And I think the reason why it's happening like it's happening now, because this is pretty much the Southeast region
Right.
where uh, they don't want DEI in this entire region. They do not. And so I just, I figured that because of the wonderful work that you're doing and how you're helping people to overcome so many challenges and so forth, I had to ask you that question because I mean, I'm just wondering, if something of that measure has even ever come up.
Yeah. I think too, because I talk about cake,
Hmm.
I can speak in a language that you don't really understand until I'm done. And so
Okay.
it gets me in this place, right? Because I talk about the importance of recognizing the different ingredients and how they all can come together. And so I'm able to spin it in a way where I can address it without actually calling it out and people know what it is. And I know for me, I think that's what's been my biggest tool is because I have something like don't burn your cake. Not saying that I'm ashamed to talk about it because we talk about it, but I have to wait to see where you are first to make sure that you accept it to it because being where I'm at, I have to be mindful of that because I don't want to lose you before I get to talking because then now you're going to take what I said out of context and you're not going to listen to anything else. You're just going to shut down. And now I'm fighting against you when I'm wasting time doing that. And so I just really learned how to speak in a way that makes sense. And then when we get done, we can have that deeper conversation because I know everybody's not going to be open to it and I'm not going to force it, but I am going to make sure people know where I stand. So then when they come to me, they can say, okay, well, hey, one on one. Let's talk about this. And so I always tell people my keynote is just a commercial. I can't change your life in 60 minutes. But once you realize that I can impact your life, you're going to bring me back and we can have those conversations and break down month by month, or quarterly, how we can do it to change the culture and change, the experience that people have when they come to your business.
Mm. And so that brings us to this last question. What are your hopes for the future of entrepreneurship and empowerment in our society?
Man, I truly hope that people are not afraid to become entrepreneurs. I think so many times I think people get so caught up in what's happening in the world that they lose sight of what the opportunities that they can happen, the opportunities that they have. I look at entrepreneurs as problem solvers. Without problems, we wouldn't be no entrepreneurs, right? And so I always tell people that you can't complain about a problem if you're not willing to fix it. And so my hope is that more people besides complaining about what's wrong with the world, will take time to do their part to help change this world. You may say, hey, it's trash all in my neighborhood. Okay, cool. Look, how about this? How about you look at that as becoming a business person? And now you got you a trash company where you picking up trash and whatever the case may be. And so it's like, I really hope that people will take the time to realize the power of entrepreneurship. Because for me, the one thing what entrepreneurship taught me was simply that the gift that I have is valuable, not only for myself, but for people that need to hear a message from me. And so it allowed me to have a deeper meaning and respect for myself because now when I'm operating as a business. I'm a brand. Like I'm not just going to go and put myself in these bad situations. I know who I am now and I know what I'm capable of doing. And so the more people that can have that entrepreneurial mindset, they're going to carry themselves in the way because I feel like they're going to want more. And so that's really what I'm hoping for is that in the future of entrepreneurship is people just own who they are and be comfortable and confident in the decisions that they make and truly understand, hey, despite what you've been through, you become whatever you desire to be. It's just going to be up to your ability to go through the process and trust it.
Wow. So, do you have any parting words for our audience this evening?
Simple. Don't burn your cake. Don't burn your cake. That's but now on a serious note, I just want to say thank you for allowing me to be on the show. And I want to give you your flowers because we haven't we don't know each other, right? We met each other through LinkedIn and you reached out to me and when I shouted to my team, I want to let you know I was excited because I'm like, man, this individual found me and I'm like, he want me to be on the show. And not saying that I haven't been on other shows, but it was different because it was almost like it was like a light bulb moment. Like, hey, Rashad, keep doing the work. Even if you feel like the ones that you want to support you are not supporting you, keep showing up because there's somebody that sees the value in what you do. So for me, I just want to say thank you for allowing me to be a part of this and just allowing me to just share some words with you because you pulled out some words that I was thinking to myself, but I gotta take notes. Like I ain't never said that before. But but I just want to say thank you though for just creating the environment and just having me on the show. And I'm so grateful. And it's my wish that 10 years from now, when you see me on TV doing these big things, you can say, man, I had him on the show, man. Like I knew he was gonna be great. And so that's what I take pride in. So thank you for that.
Well, I definitely appreciate you, and I know the audience appreciates you. And I definitely hope that this won't be the only appearance that you make on America in Black and White because you're definitely an impressionable young man.
Thank
Definitely.
you. Thank you.
And I want to thank you, Rashad, for sharing your insights and experiences with us today. It's been a pleasure having you on the show. To our listeners, thank you for tuning in to American Black and White. And remember, those of you that are looking at the YouTube channel, please subscribe and hit that notification button. So anytime you're missing a show, you'll always get a notification when a new one is uploaded. And I want you to stay tuned for more episodes where we continue to explore the stories and perspectives that shape our world. Until next time, take care and stay empowered. Thank you, sir. And we will see you next time on this show, American Black and White.